Good evening all, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Well, I've been looking across social media today, mainly because obviously we've got the march coming up on Sunday the 9th of December next week, starting at 11:45, to do with Brexit. It's called the Great Brexit Betrayal. We'll be starting outside the Dorchester Hotel on Park Lane and marching down to Whitehall, where a stage will be erected, and there'll be speeches from, amongst others, Lord Pearson of Rannoch and UKIP leader Gerard Batten. But what I found online today actually was quite shocking, and it also ties in with some of the stuff in the newspapers, which is that the regressive left will be out counter-demonstrating a march that's in support of 17.4 million people who voted to leave the European Union, the biggest democratic exercise in history. And what are they complaining about? Well, they're complaining that it's going to be a march to celebrate racism and Little Englanders, and it must be opposed, which is absolutely ridiculous. That's not what this march is all about. But, of course, never let the truth get in the way of a good smear from the regressive left. Indeed, John McDonald, my local MP in Hayes and Harlington, has encouraged people to get out and protest about it. And he's saying that you should protest about it because also there will be Tommy Robinson, a man who Momentum have had a lot to say about online today as well. Now, I'm not going to stand here and defend Tommy Robinson. He's done very good things. He's done some bad things. On the whole, I think that a lot of the stuff that he's done is positive. I mean, we wouldn't be in the situation we are now where the grooming gangs are so heavily highlighted if it hadn't have been for Tommy and some of the stuff that he's done. But they're spreading all sorts. There are edited videos and they're trying to get everybody whipped up into a sense of hysteria. And I've seen the way this works down the years. They will basically tell lies about what a march is about, get a big mob out. Usually the regressive left kick off. You have Antifa protesters there with masks on, throwing things, attacking the police. But that's never what gets reported in the media, of course. But when they turn around and say, oh, that, you know, all these Labour groups like Momentum turn around and say, oh, it's racist, it's far right, everything else, you know, all the terms that have now become meaningless because they completely overuse them. Let's have a look at the background of the people who are actually coming out with this. Well, I'll start with John McDonald, the local MP. This is a man who's praised the IRA while they were blowing up women and children in England and killing and maiming British soldiers and Ulster civilians during the Troubles. He is a man who wanted a statue to the IRA hunger striker Bobby Sands put on Hayes High Street. He's supported the BDS anti-Israel marches, running one through Hayes Town under the name Hayes for Gaza. And during that campaign, he asked people to donate to an organisation called Interpal. Well, Interpal are actually designated and prescribed in the US, Australia and Canada as a terrorist fundraising front. They put money into schools in the Middle East that teach 5-year-olds that suicide bombing is noble, and also that Jews should be eradicated from the face of the planet. Yeah, that's a nice charity to associate yourself with, John. He even signed an early day motion in Parliament asking for Interpal, for our government to put pressure on the Americans to take them off the proscribed list. I think that's probably a little bit more serious than anything that I've seen online today thrown at Tommy Robinson. They've turned around and called him a violent thug, and therefore he should be opposed. Well, this weekend we saw Labour frontbench MP Kate Osamore have to stand down from her position because she threatened to assault a journalist with a baseball bat and threw water over him. Her son, who works for her, was caught with a large amount of drugs on board. So if you want to talk about violence, you can talk about that. But that was only obviously, you know, projected violence. It didn't actually happen. So let's look at some of the people they associate with. Wayman Bennett of the Socialist Workers' Party and Unite Against Fascism. He was on stage as a speaker a couple of weeks ago at a so-called anti-racism rally in Westminster that I attended. that was interesting. You know, for an anti-racism rally, there was a hell of a lot of anti-Semitism flying around, but we've come to expect that from Labour anyway. And as for Mr. Bennett has a criminal conviction for attacking a police officer outside the BBC television centre. He actually tried to disrupt a UKIP policy launch in 2017 that I went to. He was being pretty aggressive there, although I noticed he was being aggressive to older people and kids. When I said good morning Wayman and fronted him up, he kind of got a little bit nervous about it, shall we say. And also he was involved in the SWP's cover-up of an alleged rape on a 17-year-old member by Comrade Delta, one of their senior officers, who's a close personal friend of Wayman Bennett. But I'm not going to get myself into trouble by saying who the man is. We all know who you are, but obviously that's all subject to a court order on the name. So what else about, you know, with Labour saying that we're all going to be, they're going to be far-right thugs, they're going to be racists turning out. Well, no, it's mainly going to be women, children, ordinary working people, the people that the Labour Party claim to represent but haven't done for many years. So let's have a little bit of a look at racism, shall we? With the Labour Party. Reason I've got the old bins on is because I've got a list up on the screen. And this is not an exhaustive list by any means. So let's start off. Diane Abbott. Diane Abbott objected to nurses coming into the NHS in a hospital in her area in the 1990s because she said that they were the wrong culture and didn't have links to her area and therefore wouldn't understand her constituents. Isn't that racism, Diane? But that's just the start of it. I'll read some of these out. These are absolutely beautiful. 2014, Broxtowe Labour councillor Andy Cooper urged to resign over racist remarks towards a German resident, referring to her as Hitler's wife, Eva Braun. Nice. 2007, Labour councillor David Pithian given a 3-year football banning order and fined £250 for shouting racially aggravated words towards a black football player. 2009, former Labour councillor shouted racist abuse at a Polish woman. Go back to your own country, we don't want you here. Sentenced to 28 days imprisonment. Then we've got 2013, Labour MP Jack Dromey, that's Harriet Harman's husband for those who don't know, warned by the Labour Party after referring to a postal worker as the Pikey. Labour MP 2012, oh, it's Diane Abbott again. Apologises for racist tweet, white people love playing divide and rule after Labour Party leader says it's unacceptable. Bear in mind that Diane Abbott is a patron of Stand Up to Racism, who are organising part of the counter demonstration against the Brexit march. Funny that, isn't it? Then we've got 2014, Labour councillor Pauline Gibson found guilty of making false and reckless claims of racism, following which she resigned from her position on the Standards Committee. Yeah, they've got some lovely people on the Standards Committee. 2011, Labour councillor Sue Gray of Thurrock forwarded an email containing, "This is unbelievable, it's now predicted Britain will become an Islamic state by 2070. Time to think about your children, grandchildren." However, she did say she didn't read the email before forwarding it on to lots of people, so maybe give her the benefit of the doubt. And 2012, 2 Tower Hamlets Labour councillors expelled from Labour and accused Labour of racial discrimination. 2014, Labour candidate Vicky Kirby suspended for tweets stating Israel is evil and said Hitler might be the Zionist God. She also questioned why ISIS hadn't yet attacked the real oppressors, Israel. Well, there's so much anti-Semitism in Labour at the moment, it's difficult where to start, isn't it? I actually went to some events recently. There was one that John McDonald was attending in North London where people with Jewish surnames weren't allowed in. A couple who did get in were physically thrown out. And also one of the attendees tried to set light to one of the Jews counter-protesting outside. He had an Israeli flag round his neck. And the guy tried wearing it as a cape, and the guy tried to set light to it. That's actually quite nicely catalogued on the website of the Israel Advocacy Movement, complete with video. And as I say, John McDonnell was at that event. A few days later, I was at an event where a 70-year-old Jewish lady was hospitalised by people from the Palestine Solidarity Campaign for peacefully counter-protesting outside. They kicked her in the head so hard she ended up with severe concussion. And another lady, middle-aged lady, had her legs bruised up. I was actually told, we know who you are, Cliff Dixon, we know where you live, we're going to get you later, complete with across the throat. That was lovely too. Thanks, guys. Getting back to the list. 2014, Labour MP Chi Unwara accused of racist tweet when describing protesters as ugly white men shouting obscenities. Then we've got my favourite, Margaret Burke. Margaret Burke was elected as a Labour councillor in Milton Keynes. She was previously second in command of the November the 9th Society. They're a far-right neo-Nazi group who worship Hitler, but she says her views have now changed, so that's all right, isn't it? She also did 6 months in Holloway prison as well for attempted arson. 2014, Labour MP Andy Slaughter accused of racial profiling after sending Eid Mubarak wishes to non-Muslim because of his name. He politely replied to Andy, "Stop spending public money on racial profiling." 2014, 4 highly qualified black women filed official complaints against Labour officials after not being selected for the shortlist to represent the party in Lambeth. 2003, Labour councillor Keith Farr accused of racist comments by other councillors, allegedly referring to asylum seekers as scroungers during a debate on plans for an asylum centre in Leon-the-Solent. What he admittedly said was, many asylum seekers are scroungers. Yeah, okay. 2004, ex-BNP councillor Maureen Stowe joins Labour. She states she was ashamed to be part of the BNP. And funnily enough, Trevor Maxfield, who also used to be a senior BNP organiser, is now a councillor and on the cabinet in Rossendale and Darwin. Apparently he's changed his views. Well, that's all right then. Some of the other bits on here, I mean, it just doesn't stop really. 2011, report published by the Institute of Race Relations, the New Geographies of Racism, Stoke-on-Trent, blames the Labour Party's racist policies for racism in Stoke-on-Trent. 2014, Labour candidate told she was too white and Jewish to be selected. According to the Daily Mail, Elena Cohen claims that Labour councillor said he would not support her application for an inner-city ward. I could go on, there's loads more of it. So, all I'm going to say, guys, is you're going to be out counter-demonstrating against us on Sunday the 9th of December. We're standing there for democracy and for the voice of 17.4 million British people to be heard in what was the biggest democratic exercise in history, and you're calling us a load of nasty far-right racists. This list I've got here, and like I say, there's plenty more, I'm not going to bore you with it. This list here, Labour, you hypocrites. Momentum, you hypocrites. I mean, even recently, we've now been told that the candidate for Labour standing in Uxbridge and South Ruislip against Boris Johnson at the next general election will be Ali Milani. Milani is a known anti-Semite. He was reported while he was in the NUS. It was all over his Twitter feed. His mate Ilyas Nagdi, when asked what makes him unhappy, he said whiteness. I have the photograph of him holding up a piece of paper saying it. And also Milani's association that he set up within Labour holds segregated meetings that discriminate on race and religious grounds. So if any of you guys are out protesting, take a large look at yourself in the mirror, guys. I would say you're the biggest hypocrites on the face of the planet. You should be standing with us to stick up for the rights of the British people, especially the working class, who've been most affected by the European Union. But don't let common sense and reality get in the way of your dogma. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. Please, anybody who's interested in democracy, interested in Brexit, join us on the 9th. Let's send a message to Theresa May. We're not going to allow our democracy and our referendum to be overturned and sold out by the establishment. Cheers and good night.